Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is the first video of the series Get Familiar With, dedicated to the endoscopic instrumentation. In this, like in the other video, I will show you how the instrument works, the proper setting, and the so-called tips and tricks in order to correctly install and use those instruments and devices. Very often, as you well know, manuals do not help the physician. I hope this video will give you the opportunity to discover in the proper way how to use them. Today we will have a look at the Hysteromat EASI, also known as an E.A.S.I pump. EASI, it's an acronym for Endoscopic Automatic Suction Irrigation Device. This is the most advanced pump available today to keep a stable intrauterine pressure while performing office hysteroscopy, rosettoscopy, morcellation, and even laparoscopy. Other device works only on the flow, but they leave the aspiration to other separate device, totally independent. The advance of this pump is that the irrigation and the aspiration are automatically controlled by the software to get a perfect, constant intrauterine pressure. Here we are with the E.A.S.I pump. We will go in details in the setup of the pump. When you receive the pump, you have to set up the procedure and how to install the tubing sets and how to work. The first look at the front panel of the pump will show you a touch screen here that we will see afterward how it works. The two rolling pump, the irrigation pump sign in blue and the aspiration pump sign in red. And then here we have this white dot, white button is the sensor for the pressure that allow the pump to know in resistance of the fluid through the tubing sets the pressure inside the uterine cavity. These two parts, these two devices are nothing else than a place where the aspiration tubes stay to make a little bit of order in the front panel of the pump. This is the back panel of the E.A.S.I pump. As you can see, we have the electrical plug here, the ground connector over there, and the SCB connector. The SCB connector is the stored system to interface the different units and to remote the unit from an external separate monitor. The cable is getting in here and out over here, and it's connected then to the in of another instrument. So it goes in, it's a serial connection. This one, it's the door that occludes an USB connector. The USB connector is used only for internal purposes like firmware update or any check on the machine. So this is not for final user, for the customer, but only for the technician. And then finally, the two connectors, one for the Bettocchi shaver and the other one for the pedal. If the Bettocchi shaver is connected, the pedal becomes also the pedal for the Bettocchi in order to activate first the aspiration and then the blade. If the Bettocchi is not connected, the pedal will only control the function already controllable from the touch frontal screen. And finally, this is opening for air circulation inside the machine. So it's a very simple and basic rear panel. Okay, we can switch on the machine. There is the welcome message. And then the screen will show you the different procedure you can afford: hysteroscopy, rosettoscopy, laparoscopy, where the pump is used as a normal irrigation suction device, and the Bettocchi shaver. On the top, the pump is telling you what is showing, in this case operation selection, and the time. Before going in details in the different modes, we have to set up the pump. So we press the menu button, and you see there are different options. Some of these options are active, the one highlighted, and some other are not yet active because we are not in the right mode. Settings, we are in settings. Extended settings, there are two options. When the option is on, you see, it's yellow, like now. What does it mean, these two options? Fluid supply monitor and extended display. The fluid display monitors tell you how much liquid into your sac remains during the procedure. So we fix the liters we are using, 5 or 3 or 1 in our bags. Remember that the pumps, the tubing sets connected to the pumps are epsilon tubing set. It means you can connect 2 bags at the same time. So we usually keep one bag open and the other one closed in order to switch immediately when the sac is getting close to the hand, to switch immediately to the other one without interrupting the device or without creating bubble into the circuit. So once we fix the size in liters of our bags, then we activate the mode. The option becomes yellow, and here you have the enable part. And a new icon appears on the screen, and this is the icon of the fluid management. It means that when the pump will understand that the liquid passing through the system is getting down and down and down and is reaching 5 liters, there will be an alarm to tell you to change your sac. This is quite useful option, usually not used by the majority of the people. So I strongly suggest you to activate it. Obviously, you need to activate this with a brand new sac and to eliminate this sac at the end of the procedure, because as soon as you switch off the pump, the data will disappear from the memory. So we confirm our option. The second option is the extended display. Extended display means that instead of having, as I will show you later, only the data, only the information of the pressure on this screen, you will get two. The display will be divided in two, one for the pressure and one for the flow. This is an option that I suggest you not to use, because this is a very personalized option, very difficult to be understood also for expert people. So my strong suggestion again is to take this option, enable advanced display enabled. Okay, so it must be like this and not yellow. So we confirm our option. Then we have device settings. Device settings is the language and the other data regarding the alarm and the noise on the click on the display and so on, the date. So this has been already fixed. So being no modification of this screen, there is no acceptance, but pressing this, we go back to the menu. Then we have device configuration. Device configuration show you only the time the machine was on and the release of the firmware, of the software into this machine. So this is the latest one available. Shortly will come a new one, bringing with him some modification. And finally, the system log. These are numbers, very difficult to be understood for everybody, but very useful for technician in case of problem in the machine. So sometimes when something bad happened to your machine and nobody is able to understand what's going on, you have to send this log to the technician and they will analyze the problem. And finally, this is the last option, is the service. The service, as you can see, needs a password. The password is known only by stores technicians. So this is the menu used by technician to make some change in your machine, to update your firmware, and so on. So this is something you will never use personally. So once everything has been correctly set up, then we go in the original front main screen. We choose hysteroscopy, and be careful to the screen. Here the screen presents procedure list. It means that the procedure listed here are already into the machine and are the procedure. It means the parameters choose are all the default parameters. You see the one with the 150, 151, so higher than 150 are the procedure already memorized in-house. This procedure, it's a procedure present in the machine done by somebody. You see the number, it's 100. So whatever it's between 100 and 149 are the procedure you can memorize yourself on the pump. From 150 higher are the procedure listed in-house, memorized in-house by the company. We can choose, you see different pages, there are 2 pages over 2, and these are up to the procedure 155. Let's go back to the front, to the first page of the procedure. And here you see laterally you have the show sheath. Show sheath means, pressing show sheath, you have the list of all the hysteroscopes available in terms of fluidodynamics characteristic into this machine. So, for example, we want to choose, we can choose the bio, we can choose the size 4, we can choose the size 5, as well as any other scopes available in the store's catalog. It's mandatory to know that the first steps you have to do is to choose the sheath. You choose your sheath, you choose, for example, the size 4, you confirm your choice, and then you go in a second screen. This screen shows you the standard default parameters memorized into the machine. I have to inform you that shortly a new release of the software will be available, and the new release, some of these parameters will change. Here you have the default pressure, 45 millimeter of mercury, with a flow of 50 millimeter per minute. And then you have the blood and mucus pressure and the blood and mucus mode. What the blood and mucus is. The blood and mucus, as well as another option called bipolar, are 2 specific and unique mode of working of this pump that you cannot find in any other device. The blood and mucus mode works increasing power of aspiration of the device in order to suck blood and mucus from the uterine cavity, from the cervix and from the uterine cavity, that usually it's not possible to obtain with a normal pump. So here you have the percentage increase in percentage of the pressure in terms of millimeter of mercury to 30% plus, and then the flow in milliliter per minute that has to go up to 200. With this setup, you will finally get the perfect blood and mucus mode. If you do not do anything, and if you quickly run through the different pages of the menu, what you will get is that this parameter, the blood and mucus mode, will not be effective when you will press the button. I will show you later when the machine will be ready. And then don't go fast, don't press the confirmation button, but save the procedure as a new procedure. So in this case, I will choose to write, So I wrote Bettocchi size 4. And finally, I gave the confirmation. So now the pump is prepared to work. So imagine that we have to perform hysteroscopy. So we click on hysteroscopy, and you see we have the different options. Here, as you can see, we have what it's been already memorized, Bettocchi size 4, and there is another one, Bettocchi 4. You recognize by the number, as I told you, it's 105, so it's below 150. 150 and higher are the procedure memorized in-house. The one lower than 150 are the procedure memorized by somebody. This was done by me now, and this is already into the machine. How can we cancel this? We don't want this because it was maybe a mistake, so we select this procedure. We are in the procedure list, remember? We select this procedure, we confirm the procedure, and then we go into the menu, into the procedure administration that before was not highlighted. Now it's active because there is a procedure chosen. We can, or overwriting the procedure, changing the name, or writing as an additional procedure, or we can cancel the procedure. So we want to cancel the procedure, and when we press this and we give our confirmation, the procedure, you see, disappear from the list. Same things can be done with other scopes. So if I'm using not only the Bettocchi size 4, but I'm using also, for example, the bio, you will do the same thing. You will click on the bio in the sheath list. Be careful, in the sheath list. I will click on the bio. I will, let's do it. Oops. I will confirm my choice. I will increase of 30% the pressure, the intercavitary pressure, and accordingly, I will bring to 200 the flow in ml per minute. And then before confirming my choice, I will save as a new procedure. And I will call it bio, or you can call any name. For example, there are different colleagues with different ideas about pressure. Each one of them can have his own personalized setup based on the same scope. If you want to check what has been done, again, you press this button, and you see we are back in the procedure list. And you have not only the Bettocchi size 4 we memorize, but another one, 101, that is bio. So these two are our home procedure. If we have another colleague that like, for example, to work with the Bettocchi size 4 or with the bio, instead of using 30% plus of pressure in the blood and mucus mode, he wants to have 40 or 50, it can be memorized as an alternative procedure. Instead of calling bio or Bettocchi size 4, it will be bio, for example, and the name of the doctor. So each one should have its own preferences listed in this list of procedure here. So we choose, for example, Bettocchi size 4. We give the approval. Now the machine is ready to work. Before going in details in the connection of the tubing sets and in the operation, I want to spend a couple of words regarding the setup of the mini rosetta-scope. You know, the mini rosetta-scope, it's a brand new bipolar rosetta-scope of 5 millimeter or 15 French, released this year from the company Karl Storz. This instrument being so new, it's not yet listed in the instrument available into the pump. It will be in the next release of the firmware that we are waiting for. So for those of you already having or using the new 5mm rosetta, I will show how to set up the proper fluidodynamics waiting for the new release of the software. The company found a very similar fluidodynamic characteristic in one hysteroscope. So this is the reason why, instead of going in the resection list, we will go in the hysteroscopic list. But as soon as the new release, as I told you, will be available, the mini rosetta will not be listed into the hysteroscopic list, but will be listed in the rosettoscopic list. So we have to go in sheath. So the first point is to look for the 26153EA hysteroscope. This hysteroscope has been tested having the same fluidodynamic characteristic of very similar compared to the new mini rosetta. So here we have 26153EA. We choose this one. Then we have to install different parameters that we tested as the perfect parameters for the mini rosetta. 50mm of mercury, 70 milliliter per minute flow, and blood and mucus mode plus 40, and a relate flow in milliliter per minute of 230. This is the perfect setup at the moment until the new release will be official for the mini rosetta. Obviously, remember, don't click on the confirmation, but save as a new procedure. Otherwise, next time you will switch on the pump, the on and off and on. Next time you will switch off and then on the pump, this parameter will disappear. Save as a new procedure. Okay, so we wrote mini rosetta 5, that means 5mm. And then we approve. Now we are ready to show to you the connection of the tubing sets, irrigation and aspiration, to the machine and to the sac that you see behind me. On the table there is the blue irrigation cable and the red aspiration tubing set. So I will take first the aspiration tubing set and I will connect it to the machine and to the sac. One trick to keep sterile the tubing sets while you are assembling the system. You take the silicone tube as well as the aspiration tubing sets, and you try to keep the final part, the one that you connect to the hysteroscope, sterile inside the sterile bag and bringing out the rest of the tubes. I'll show you how to do it. You see the final part, this is the blue one, and there is also the red one. I hold with my hands and I move the system out. So this remains sterile inside the sterile bag. Then I keep it like this, so this area is still sterile. You can leave it on your table and connecting the tubing set. Regarding the tubing set, at the opposite of the part that will be connected to the hysteroscope, we have, as I told you before, the Epsilon connectors. You can connect two bags in order to keep one open and the other one closed. This will allow you to have like a 10 liters bag and to avoid bubbles and to waste time between changing both the sac. So these are the two final parts that we will insert into the bag, and then in the middle of the tube you have the connectors for the pump. This silicone blue part is the part that will go inside the rolling pump, and these two rigid adapters, 1 and 2, are unique in terms that one cannot fit instead of the other one. I will show also this to you. And then finally, the pressure sensor, this soft membrane, then when installed here, will touch the sensor, the white sensor, and will determine the calculation of the pressure inside the machine. So let's assemble the cable. First of all, we go with the cable on the sensor, number 1, here, okay? And then the tube is already prepared for its standard position. One goes inside here, and the other one in its place here. Okay? Then I close the irrigation. And we connect the tube to the sac. We will do the same thing also with the aspiration cable. Tubing sets are connected to the sac behind me and to the machine. The only things we have to do now, before activating the machine, is to insert the final part of the aspiration silicone tube into a normal receptor or any other can we have available in the office or in the operative theater. This is because the aspiration is not generated by a vacuum, like in the receptor, by the movement of the rolling pump. So we insert into the receptor the silicone tube, and it's done. And then we have to close the last secure connectors, and we have the main panel view. We are in a hysteroscopic mode, in a continuous flow mode, and we are using our setup we fixed before, Bettocchi size 4. Here you have only the intrauterine pressure visible, and the button for starting the machine, the on-off button, and the two buttons I told you before, the blood and mucus mode and the bipolar mode. The blood and mucus mode is the mode I told you already before, is where the pump increase the aspiration rate in order to overcome the resistance of the blood and the mucus during the normal procedure to be aspirated into the scope. The bipolar 5 French mode is just the opposite. Here the pump increase the rate, the flow, to overcome the resistance created into the operative channel that, remember, is the same channel for the irrigation and for the instrument. The resistance, as I told you, created by full French instrument, like bipolars probes or the device for tubal sterilization. In fact, many people refer the cavity collapsing when they change from mechanical instrument to the bipolar instrument. Why? Because the mechanical instruments are 5 French only on the tip. The rest of the body is 3.5 French, so it's smaller. While the bipolar and the device for tubal sterilization are full 5 French instrument. It means that they are increasing the resistance for the fluid to pass to the cavity. So we inform the pump pushing the bipolar mode, bottom mode, that we are changing our instrument, creating a resistance for the liquid to pass through. These are absolutely two great features of this pump, again, not foundable anywhere else. Now we are ready to start the procedure. Obviously, we don't have yet liquid into the silicone tube, but just to show to you, we start the machine, and the machine shows to you the details of the setup we fixed before. So we check that everything is there, 30% is here, 200 milliliter per minute are there, so we can give the final approval and start the machine working. You see here now only the rolling pump is working because no liquid, no hysteroscope connector, so the rolling pump for the aspiration stops. And there is no pressure, okay, there is no hysteroscope connected. If you want to increase for some reason, I suggest no, but if you want to increase the flow during the procedure, you can push the plus button here, increase by step of 5. When you reach 60 and you want to move forward, the system tells you that you are going not in a safe area. So it's a warning message just to tell you, don't increase the pressure, otherwise you will run in trouble. So we don't want to increase the pressure. We cancel and we go back to 40 millimeters of mercury. That is the pressure, the standard pressure. You see, when we are activating the flow, also the bipolar mode is visible, and not only the blood and mucus. Blood and mucus is here. You see, I push the blood and mucus and the pump immediately reacts and now stops because there is no yet pressure. And the bipolar mode can also work together. You see, the pumps also run, but be no resistance for the fluid, the pump immediately goes in protection mode and stops. Now, as I told you at the beginning of the presentation, I would like to talk about one of probably of the most important tricks about the pumps, any pumps. The location of the pump on the trolley, in the OR or in your ambulatory. Usually, if you carefully watch an ambulatory or an operative theater, the pump is located in the lower part of the trolley or below compared to the camera, the lights, and the generator. This is because technicians are afraid that the liquid the pump is working with could damage the other electronics. So they keep the pump lower respect to the other electronics. The problem is, if the pump is located on the trolley, it will be at least 20 or even 30 or even more centimeters below the abdomen of the patient. So the liquid, to reach the scope, will be pushed up for 30 centimeters against the pressure generated by the gravity. And this will reduce tremendously the flow, reading the pump any resistance as a pressure inside the uterine cavity. So if the pump has to push the liquid up to the scope, this will be written as pressure, intrauterine pressure, even if it's not like this. So to better understand how it works, I will show to you a practical example using an office hysteroscope, the E.A.S.I pump, and some liquid. And I will move the scope higher and higher and higher compared to the pump until we will reach 35 centimeters of distance. And you will see that the liquid will slowly stops, even if we are not inside any uterus. This is because the pump has to win the gravity pressure. So the message is, do not install the pump lower than the patient, always higher. This is one of the most common mistakes done. Let's install, this is our scope. Remember, the blue tube is the irrigation, the yellow that we don't need because it's just a matter of inflow, but I want to show you how to connect it. The yellow is the aspiration, okay? So our scope is connected with the red, not the yellow, sorry, the red one and the blue one, okay? We'll bring our can here, and I open the flow here, and I start the pump. Okay, we have a certain flow coming out from the tip of the scope, you see? So now be concentrate on the tip of this instrument. I will stand, and you will see slowly that the flow, the amount of liquid coming out from the tip, you can realize from the distance between the tip and the liquid is decreasing. Is decreasing more and more, until at a certain point, there are only few drops coming out from the tip of the instruments. And this is the end of the game. You see, only a few drops, and nobody touched the pump. The pump is still on. But if you see the pump, if you show the pump, you will see that the pressure on the pump, it's written it's already 55 millimeter of mercury. And this is not true. So there is, you see, this is the last drop on the tip of the scope. And now I'm going down. I'm going down. And now the flow will slowly start. You see? Okay. 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 And I'm only, look, around 30 centimeters from the pump. Okay. Now, in a panoramic view, you can see that the flow has been reestablished as soon as I get close to the pump. And once more, I'm getting higher and higher and higher and higher and higher, and the fluid is close to stop. Okay, so I think everybody understood that the flow is strictly related to the pressure applied inside the silicone tube. So any wrong position of the pump, it's replied immediately as a resistance and therefore as a pressure inside the uterine cavity. So again, the pump always higher than the patient. Now I'll try to explain you some basic concept about fluidodynamics. I will not go through the laws that control the fluidodynamics because I understand are quite difficult for people not prepared in this specific field. So I will bring you some example. Here we have a can with water. It could be the saline solution. And here we have a syringe with its needle. So to understand why our instruments change in terms of fluidodynamics and in terms of characteristic one from each other, we have to understand this basic concept. I take my 20 ml syringe and I fill the syringe with water. You see? And I push my piston and I empty my syringe in a very short time, applying a certain pressure. Once again, the syringe, 20 ml, done in few seconds. Now, if I fill again with the same amount of liquid, 20 ml, my syringe, and I insert the needle, what I have done, I have tremendously reduced the size of the output channel from this size to this size. So I'm increasing the resistance for the fluid to pass through. And this means that now to empty my syringe, I need to apply much higher force, and even if I'm applying a higher force on the pistons, the time I need to empty the syringe is absolutely higher than before. So you see, this is the resistance of the fluid. As soon as the channel becomes smaller, the pressure increases and you need more time and more force to bring the liquid out. The example is also reproducible comparing our office hysteroscope as the syringe with the needle, and a rosetta as the syringe without the needle. The rosetta is a large instrument. It's just close to the double of this instrument in terms of diameter. And obviously, the inflow and the outflow channel are much larger, so are like the syringe without the needle. So the liquid to pass through the rosetta will not encounter a high pressure as it encounters inside the channel of the office hysteroscope. Another example. Let me fill again the syringe with 20 ml of liquid. Now what I'm doing, I'm blocking the output and I remove my piston, okay? So look what's happened when I remove my finger. The gravity pressure pushed the liquid through the output channel and it takes 10-15 seconds to empty. Okay? Now we do the same with the needle. I remove my piston and look what's happened. Only drops of liquids. The problem here is that the gravity pressure is not strong enough to win the resistance of this small channel. So what it was before a very high flow, now it's just a few drops of liquid. And this is easy to understand how the instrument, the different instruments works inside the uterine cavity. I remove my needle and we have the flow. We are finally at the end of the presentation of the E.A.S.I pump. I hope you got all the information regarding the setup and the use of the machine. One more time, I would like to remember you the most important point I consider the base of your knowledge. Number one, to position the pump higher than the body of the patient to avoid any problem in the use of the pump itself. Number two, the correct setup of your instruments as soon as you receive the pump. Remember the blood and mucus mode that has to be set up waiting for the new release of the software immediately and stored as a new procedure in the machine. And three, to better understand how the pump works, remember the example I gave you, all this information will be helpful in your daily practice. We are at the end of this video, Get Familiar With. I hope the information and the suggestion I shared with you will be helpful in the daily practice. See you in the next video.